Good morning, good afternoon, good day. And I'm sporting the new hats I was supposed to have at NADA that FedEx finally delivered to me after they were redirected. So if you're looking for one, I have them in red, blue, and black. The hats have no cost. You just got to pay shipping. So reach out. Why supplies last. I also have a few of these shirts left. Same thing. Need to pay for shipping. Let me know. And I have Mr. Joshua, the one and only Taro, on with me today. I thought I would start the show today. Russell Hill has just entered, so he's going to be joining us. I'm going to start the show today with a clip from a show I did 2 years ago called Sales versus Fixed Ops. So here we go.
Did you look it up for me or you too?
So that's a little clip from the show. And believe it or not, we've been talking about customer experience and auto dealers for 6 years. So it's not a new topic, but it's a great episode on sales versus fixed ops. Think of that spy versus spy kind of analogy. But welcome. Just going to get started. Before I do that, I wanted to share a survey that I did for the show today about tires. Shocking, because the show today is about selling tires. And this was ran for about a week. So how important is selling tires? 82% said it was critical. No money in tires, 2%. I was shocked at that. I thought it'd be lower or higher. Costco, 9%, and not sure, 7%. So here we go. And good afternoon, good evening. Happy Friday to everybody.
Happy Friday.
Here we go.
I got to grab my...
That's it. And we are looking for sponsors, as you know. All righty. So we have two guests, and we're probably going to get another guest shortly from the Maritimes, who's going to talk a little bit about the software company she works for, and also recruiting people in the HR side of the fixed ops side of the business. Interesting piece of software. Anyway, I wanted to introduce my good buddy, Mr. Joshua Taylor, the one and only from Wrench Turners. If you're not familiar with his podcast, you can definitely check it out. And he's got some subtle endorsement on his shirt there, very subtle. And we also have Russell, very subtle. We also have Russell Hill from the U.S., who's the WTF. There you go. Oh, look at all the gear. Crazy. You don't have the books, though. You need the books, man. And if you haven't got a copy...
The book is coming. It might be 2 years away, but there'll be a book coming.
And if you haven't got a copy, you might want to get this 2025 Insights from CDK. Send me an email. I'll get you a hard copy. Pretty interesting book. And I was actually, before the show started, the pre-show, we were talking about retention, and I was looking at the growth and retention with franchise dealerships versus independents. So it said dealerships have grown from 45 to 59%, but independent dealers have beaten them, starting at 56% retention and gone up to 66%. The needle's definitely moving, but it's moving faster for the independents. So
I got to tell you, I was really fascinated on page 8 of that book that you got, where 31% of people today prefer to talk to AI versus a human at the dealership.
That's a crazy statistic.
Wow.
It's a crazy read, Joshua. You need to read it. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah, if you need a copy, send me an email. I'll get Troy or the team to mail you out a copy. It's a hard copy. It's a great read if you're looking for data, but more importantly, setting targets to how you can improve your dealership. So Joshua, tell us more about what you do. Tell us more about wrench turners, and answer the first question. Why is it so important to sell more tires, in your opinion?
So as an individual that got into the professional automotive industry in approximately 2002, 2003, somewhere in there, it's been long enough that I'm starting to forget the dates. But I started as an apprentice, got my license as a mechanic, turned wrenches as a flat rate mechanic, first and foremost at a CGR store. I've worked on Toyotas and a little bit of everything in between. I've been in the drive, I'm behind the desk, at the big chair, GM at a collision center. I've worked for digital marketers. I've worked for software companies. I've worked for software developers, all in, on, or around automotive for 20 plus years. And for the last 3 years, focusing on helping technicians be happier, healthier, more productive through surveys, coaching, content, and really focusing on the content now in hoping to elevate technicians to the next level through professionalism, communication, capability, sales tactics, productivity tactics, things of that nature. Given the background, and I recall days and days in my apprenticeship where it was tires, to tires galore. So much so I remember I think the second season I was at the CGR store. This is back when tires on rims was just really coming into their own, especially here in Canada for the winter season. I recall doing somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500 tire on rims. So it's like somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 sets, 625 sets, give or take, that I pre-built for the season that year between caravans, neons at the time, caravans, neons, Concords, the cloud cars, all of the era.
Yeah.
And it was an absolute slog. The cool thing is that there's a lot of folks that were really skeptical about how important that was to the future of the business. Being able to tell a customer that you no longer have to hold on to your tires anymore, because not only were we selling you a set of tires on rims that was significantly less expensive for you to change over every year, it was significantly easier for us to do, which means you weren't in the store for as long. Also, it meant that you didn't have to book as far out because we went to a no appointments on that situation. I recall many moons ago. We also offered storage services. So it was a complete package where we were selling storage fees twice a year. We were selling the packages themselves, which was far easier to make more gross on the packages back then. And even today, it's easier to make money on a package than it is on just the tires themselves. So it was a way for us to generate revenue overall. But what many don't see, and don't see the secondary or even tertiary aspect of selling tires, is that when somebody wants to spend that much money with you and is happy to spend that much money with you, it means they trust you. And if they trust you, it means once they get those tires off, whether it's a tire on rim or just a complete tire change because they're worn out, now you have the opportunity to see all the stuff that make you money. The tire, and you've got the steering, suspension, brakes, tie rods, inner control arms, like all of the bits and pieces that make us the most money, both from a service advisor, a technician, and a business standpoint. It makes us the most amount of money. And the cool thing is most of those components are a pass or fail.
Yeah.
It is not well, you can maybe let this go a little while longer. It's only dripping a little bit now. Yeah. No. Suspension components, most of the time, are a pass or fail. This vehicle is safe or this vehicle is unsafe. So, if you've got the trust to be able to sell a set of tires to a customer, you then have their trust to say, hey, we want to make sure that these tires last a long time, and we want to make sure that you're safe. So it's imperative that we're in the tire game to make sure those customers are safe every single time they step foot into that car, and that they keep coming back to us time after time.
Fantastic. I agree
Right
100%. I mean, I was looking for some winter tires for my vehicle this winter, and I got quotes from two companies. Cal Tire is an independent, and my local Chrysler dealer. And I have to commend the local Chrysler dealer. They had not only 2 pages. Oh no, sorry, 4 pages. They even had a whole bunch of stuff on why tires and why them. There's all kinds of information. I will take photos of this and post this just because I think it's a good example. But I years ago was doing some training at a General Motors store, and they brought in a tire expert to train their service writers on how to sell tires. And I remember going out to dinner with him after, and he owned independent service shops. And I asked him what his service retention was. And he goes 76%. And I go, well, how do you do that? He goes, sell everyone tires. He wanted to move the needle higher than that. So if you don't believe me on the tire side, I mean, the General Motors store, I think, was hoping to get to 40% at the time. And this was 10, 15 years ago. But 76%, I was like, wow, that's a crazy number. So the one and only Russell Hill, tell us, Russ, about what you do and your opinion on tires and why tire sales are important.
Well, I'm Russell Hill, and I own a company called Fixed Ops Marketing, and tires are an extremely big thing. I've seen, this is my 40th year in the business, and I was on the front end for a long time, but the 2 single largest defection points in dealership today nationally are tires and oil changes. Tires, for a particular reason, we have educated consumers over the last 30 years that we can't compete. We tried this 2 or 3 times in the States. Never took, wasn't enforced, no accountability, low margins. But you see, customers, they don't know that. They just think that we can't compete because we never really talked intelligently to them. We are today. We know now, post-pandemic, that the single largest purchase they're going to make during the warranty period, and when this affects repeat, referral, and retention, are tires. You don't just come out of the blue and sell them tires. If they're obviously during the warranty period, they're probably coming in your dealership for oil changes, routine stuff. But it's, when it's time to set them up for tires, and when that time comes, you're going to be, you develop that relationship, because everything is about relationship. They like, they trust you, believe you, they're going to buy from you. Well, it not only is it the single largest purchase, but 67% of those people continue to service with you and buy a new or pre-owned vehicle. Those are current statistics that I have anyway. Joshua will straighten me out if I'm incorrect so much. But with that being said, if they go to a Firestone, Goodyear, all these, the NADA says that 16 independents surround these franchise dealers. And if we're not selling them, well, who in the hell is? Well, they are. And what do you think they're telling them? All they express, we can do the tires, alignments, brakes, batteries, they filter. We do all of that stuff. No need to go back to franchise dealer, plus for less money. Well, in fact, statistics show that the dealership is less, not necessarily just for tires, but they can be just as competitive or more if they have to retain the customer for the long game. But we all get our tires from the same place, essentially. So we can be just as competitive, but customers don't know this. So it's an educational process, and it's a slow process. Getting out of the silos between variable and fixed, understanding, the importance of video MPIs and what that means to you, transparency and pricing. But the very first thing that starts it off is, hello, my name is Russell. Is this a welcome or a welcome back? And smiling at the customer instead of, do you have an appointment? Who in the hell are you, man? I mean, this sets the precedence. This sets the precedence for the future of how that goes. I wrote this down. I got a new book yesterday called Winning on Purpose. Leadership is an action, not a title. I thought was really pretty cool. The other thing is the primary purpose of all businesses should be one thing: enrich the lives of our customers. Period. The end. Why? Well, because when customers are happy and you at least meet, but I'm talking about exceeding their expectations, they feel that love, and they're going to come back and they're going to bring their friends with them too. If you don't do that, and even I think maybe just meeting expectations, they're not going to go above and beyond. It has to be either you don't and it's horrible and they'll tell everybody about it, or two, you exceeded and made some kind of impact and built a relationship with them. And as a result, they're going to tell their friends, neighbors, and relatives, especially when they get into conversations about how they got screwed by the service department, taken advantage of. That's right. I paid $79.95 for a synthetic oil change with a rotate. I should have gone to Valvoline because I didn't get a rotate and it cost me $99. Right? I mean, this is what they think, and it's not true. Traditionally, independents are higher.
Yeah.
And anyway,
yeah,
that's the quick condensed version.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like when you're looking at service for any car, I mean, not only are you getting factory trained technicians and a warranty when you go to a selling dealer, to your point, if I'm a selling dealer, I'm probably selling other things than service. And tires, as we know, there's not a huge margin in them generally, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be selling them. But more importantly, I mean, I was getting my hair cut the other day, and I don't have a lot of hair, but the barber was asking me car questions because he found out I was a car guy. He's like, well, you know, I got this issue with my car. It's pulling or whatever. And I said, have you looked at the tires lately? He goes, no. I said, well, did you take it to the dealer? He goes, well, it's a pretty new car. I said, yeah, but like, shouldn't you at least have the tires looked at? Do you understand even how to check the tires? He goes, no. I said, well, exactly. So even if you don't sell the customer's tires the first time they service their car, you can definitely talk to them about uneven wear. I mean, there's all kinds of technology. I mean,
actually, they got all the newfangled stuff now, like UVI and Attraction and other types of companies where it can monitor all that. And it's funny that you're talking about this because Josh and I, my business partner, have talked ad nauseum about some new stuff we're going to be doing revolving around tires and good, better, best, and educating, etc. Yes, it's not just a here it is, do it. There's a lot involved, but we're excited about it because dealerships are broken and they want to get better, but they're still broken.
Well, we have Marshall, Journeyman mobile technician on. I don't know if Marshall, if you have any thoughts on tires. And we do have Mandy. I know she's driving, so she's probably not going to be on. But Marshall, did you want to comment on why dealers should sell more tires?
Hey, Marshall, please share your screen.
Oh, sorry, what? He's on there. I don't think he can talk. Oh, wait a second. Marshall, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I actually was trying to copy our Zoom link for something else, and I accidentally joined.
Yeah, no problem. Did you want to comment on tires?
I don't have anything profound on tires myself.
So do you think it's important that dealers sell them, or what's your thought?
I think if the customer needs something, then we should recommend. So it doesn't, especially tires or anything safety related. So if we find something in our inspections and the customer definitely needs that, then we should recommend it and get our advisors to recommend it to the customer.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we're getting into another question, but a question I've gotten from many dealers, and maybe you have an answer since you're obviously dealing with customers a lot. What do you think dealers should stock in terms of tires? I mean, I've had all kinds of thoughts on this. What's your thought there?
Well, so since my environment is a little bit different, you know, in my market, pretty much most trucks, heavy duty trucks, there's only two, you know, a couple of different options. So it would be pretty easy for us to stock tires. We don't sell tires at my store. We don't do tires.
Oh, okay.
But I've worked at places that we did. And, you know, we would stock like maybe an economy version of a steer tire and a premium version of a steer tire. And then same for drives, just because, you know, tires are kind of expensive in the heavy duty side. So having them in our inventory is at high volume is expensive.
Understood.
What's the difference in tire pricing? Because we're used to seeing anywhere from a very, very, very cheap knockoff version, which God only knows how long it lasts, for $20 to $30 a tire, all the way up to, you know, $1,000, $1,200 a tire on something elitist like a GT3 RS or a high level vehicle like that, but the average passenger car is $200 to $300 a tire. What's the average tire on a drive or a steer tire on a heavy duty truck?
It's been a while since I priced one out, but they're expensive, super expensive. I think a premium, a Goodyear type of situation is probably $1,000 per steer tire. I'd have $800 ish maybe, but it's been a while since I priced one out.
So there's definitely some money in it, though, obviously, at that price point. And when you look at electric cars, another thing that I think people don't understand, I mean, if you're looking at, say, your favorite electric car brand, I know Tesla's got kind of a pylon going lately, but if you're moving a vehicle like a Hummer EV or any of these heavy SUV or even heavy electric vehicles, I mean, not only are the tires more money, and there's probably money to make them, but they probably wear out faster just because of the weight, right? So if you're moving in a commercial truck, I'm sure that's also the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think they should stock, Mr. Joshua?
Definitely your economy. You should always have an economy. But more importantly, you need to look at your data. Most importantly, you can't stock everything.
Yeah.
It's reasonable to expect the parts department to stock everything, especially if you're at a store that has many models with lots of tire differences between models, model trims, so on and so forth. It's unreasonable to expect the parts department to stock everything. However, there are lots of different ways to look at all of that. Making sure that your data is clean, making sure you have a company much similar to, or if you have Parts Edge, shout out to Kaylee Filio, you need to have a really good hold on what your tire stock is, and more importantly, what you service the most of. As a fixed ops director, you got to be looking at these things. And that's the stuff that I looked at while I was a director myself. What are the things that we service the most? Am I looking at Lancer GTs? Am I looking at RVRs all the time? What am I looking at? Gotta have the stuff that you service the most of. And you really got to take that into account in every part of your parts department, but talking about tires specifically, have your economy and then have premium. Yes, I love the good, better, best. I was raised in good, better, best with CJR, but I don't think good, better, best truly works. I think there's too many options, personal opinion, for service advisors. There's too much to talk about when you talk about good, better, best. I think you need to have a way of thinking, a way of talking to customers. I think it needs to be a lot more focused on what the vision and mission and values of the dealership is and how you sell and what's most important to the dealership in terms of how they sell. My mantra has always been 4 tires, big shout out to Michelin, but my phrase was always, are we putting Michelins on the car or are we shopping for tires?
Right.
So when you get into that kind of mindset, when you're talking to customers, you've immediately carried, even if you're not a Michelin person, let's say you're a Goodyear person, it doesn't matter. But that kind of conversation, the way you carried yourself in that one sentence alone, you said what it is that you back, what it is that you trust, why it is, like you're putting your whole weight of your experience behind a brand. And then it's, well, then shop for tires. Well, if we're shopping for tires, it's, well, the idea is to get the customer to engage with you, to say what's important to them. You've given that your advice, your help, your so on and so forth, so that you've elicited their response. The secondary portion is, do they trust you to actually give advice? You know, have you built up enough trust and credibility in the conversations prior to needing tires for them to trust your opinion on whatever it is that you're selling, even if you're really good at objection handling?
Yep.
What do you stock? I think based on your dealership, based on your mission, vision, and values of the dealership, what it is that you have most impactfully can give advice and experience behind as a tire, and then economy, based on what you service the most.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Marshall here on video. Marshall, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what you do. You're muted, just so you know.
Marshall's a stud, man.
Sometimes. Talk about what I do, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you get where you are? What do you do? For the people who didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, I know Josh and Russell know me, but I'm Marshall. I'm a diesel mechanic. I'm a mentor technician primarily, so I train apprentices. I've been in this industry since I got out of the Marine Corps. It's all in about 18 years.
Well, thank you for your service too.
Yeah, thanks. For
Yes, sir.
So you turned a few wrenches.
Yeah, I've spun a couple. For sure. Broke a couple along the way.
So I had a question. You were talking about how you don't sell. You have worked in places that sell tires and ones that don't. I'm just curious as to the why. Like, why would a place sell it versus not, in your opinion?
So on the heavy duty side, it's liability of our employees.
Yeah.
The tires, a lot of technicians get hurt
Yeah.
on working on heavy duty tires. So just for the liability purposes of it, we don't do it. And I've not worked at a dealer that did do tires in heavy duty.
Okay. I'm just curious.
So,
I didn't know, but I appreciate the insight. So Russell, what's your opinion on what they should stock?
Well, I mean, I agree with what Josh just said. Now, I do believe in good, better, best. And the reason I do is because there's a psychology to it. Most people are going to pick the better. The vast majority, if they have a choice of three, they usually pick the middle. It's just psychology. And you don't have to, it can be an enormous expense. Dealers don't really think about that, but you only have to stock so many SKUs, okay? Like Joshua said, you have your primary selling models. You're going to mirror what the market is, and that's what you're going to have available. You might have one or two SKUs of the good. The majority are going to be better, and a couple of the best. Now, for somebody like me, I got staggered. So wherever I go, they don't have tires all the way around. So, but what dealerships are afraid of, but equally, we can do just like a discount tire, Firestone, Goodyear, etc. And that is hot shipments, 24 hours, man. You can get them shipped from anywhere in the damn country or anywhere in the world, probably 48 max if it's a real specialty. And every time I get tires, I have to have my rear tires ordered, and they usually have the front ones in stock. So, but it's all an education system, and you have to dispel some of the myths. It's too expensive. We can't stock all that. Once again, I like that. I'm certainly open, and I think it's equally effective with what Joshua said, particularly on the advisory side. But then most of the advisors aren't advisory capacity. They don't know enough about what the hell they're talking about. So it makes it easy for them as well, and the consumer, to talk about good, better, best. Traditionally, what does one versus the other mean, etc. Now, anyway, that's my stance on it. But I'm certainly open to not good, better, best. I'm just kind of thinking along the lines of red, yellow, and green and stuff like that. You
got to start somewhere. If you have no tires in stock, then you might want to start by stocking some.
And a lot of it's just familiarity, because I've been in a lot of establishments where they have, all over the drive with tires everywhere, good, better, best.
Yeah. And
so I'm sure my opinion is skewed because of that. Joshua will learn me later on about that.
Well, obviously alignment's important.
How they're set up in the drive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting conversations that I've had over the years about merchandising tires, whether they should or shouldn't be in the service drive. I understand that there is a lot of folks out there that don't understand the difference in dealership size. So it wasn't until I ventured down to the US and walked through some medium-sized stores that I realized how misunderstood the size of our industry is. Coming as a Canadian, I grew up in a town of 20,000 people. There's like 5 dealerships, and the store I worked at, the CDGR store, was large in comparison. And we had, I think there was 14 techs in total, including all of the apprentices and so on and so forth. There was everything was a 2-post except for alignment rack, which was a 4-post lift. And I thought that was big. And I thought that was big until I went to the city in Toronto and I saw a 20 bay shop, and that was gigantic, absolutely gigantic. And then I came to the States and I saw 40 bay. And I realized that a 40 bay shop is still not a big shop. That's a hefty shop. 40 techs in a shop, that's a big shop, but that's not big. No, that's not big. You've got stores like Ed Roberts' shop with 99 techs on the floor, and he's got somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 trucks out in the road with 2 techs in each one. So he's moving somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 technicians under his purview out of one store. So the concept of size and what you should do with tires, the tires for somebody alone, for somebody like Ed Roberts at Bozard Ford, that's a logistics completely on its own to ensure there's enough tires a day, not a month, not a quarter, not a year, but a day.
That's right.
So when you bring that all into the mix of how you merchandise tires, how you sell tires, how you talk about tires, whether they should or shouldn't be in the drive, is really a matter of perspective based on your customers and your store, and just as much as your brand. You know, there are stores out there. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, Stefan DeSantos, is at an Audi store in the city here, not too far away from me. If I understand correctly, the store said sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 50-50 for EVs, right? That store, in a not so distant future, oil changes are going to be tire rotations in that store in the not so distant future.
Yeah.
Which also means that tire replacements are going to be like oil changes, not so distant.
That's right.
Considering they're going to like 20 to 30,000 kilometers, 15 to 20,000 miles, and they're chewing rears because they scoot pretty good. So talking about tires are vital. And I haven't even talked about alignments yet, and I got some data on that, but I want to hear from Russell about tires and what it was like selling tires or dealing with tires when he was still in the store.
Well, I didn't, but my team did, because I was variable. I was a general manager, general sales manager, etc. as I worked my way up. So I didn't have much of that. I did work with service drive a lot, though. It was bread and butter. I felt I had to get a certain amount of new, certain amount of pre-owned, and a percentage of that I felt compelled to get it off the drive. And I learned a lot. And particularly as I grew through the ranks, I made it a point to walk through the shop every day, talk to advisors, technicians, stuff like that. But just being transparent, I wouldn't know how to really answer that, Joshua.
Oh,
interesting. So if you're talking about alignment, we were talking about that. We were talking a little bit about merchandising, and I've seen stores as big as 80 bays. Even I had a chance to go to one in Dubai, which was air conditioned shop, which was a whole different story. They had Jeeps with 50 caliber turrets on them that were personally owned vehicles that moved around. Like the turrets went 360, which was kind of crazy. But, you know, when you're looking at, you know, big pieces of tech, whether it be Hunter machines or whether it be the UVI machine, and you're talking about EVs, looking at that 50-50 split, and you're looking specifically at tires, specifically on EVs because of weight, I think alignments are going to be a huge thing. But more importantly, I think the type of tires you're going to see is going to be very different. But I think alignments in some cases are undersold because people don't know that they have to get an alignment probably once a year at least. But more importantly, I think people sometimes are afraid to sell alignments. I mean, and to me, that's a no-brainer.
Certainly don't know why. And yeah, at least one time a year, certainly when you get tires for sure. But it depends on where you live and what kind of road you're traveling.
Yeah, I mean, but when you look at
concrete
some of the,
versus asphalt.
Yeah. You look at some of the stuff on the road. I mean, some of these third-party tire. I was showing this quote from a third-party tire here versus a Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram quote I got, which was much more detailed. This is a 4-page one. This is a 1-page one. One of the ways they sell tires is they go, okay, we'll store it, we'll fix, repair this, that, and a bag of chips. But to your point, it's also merchandising. So when you go into their store, they have racks in the service reception where they can go through tires much like you would a pair of clothes. Like here's the groupings of tires, here's the difference, good, better, best. But they also do it in such a way that they can, the rep who's selling tires can walk around and say, hey, okay, here's the tires I'd recommend for you, right? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, part of it is knowing tires, but also being able to illustrate that. And it could just be a good, better, could just be a good, better, best, but also the benefits of alignment. One of the things that surprised me about them, and this is I think a national chain, is they're really good at, after they put the tires on, saying you got to come back within a certain amount of miles to tighten the bolts on the tires. And they get the people back to reinforce that sale, usually within a day or two. And that's something I haven't seen a lot of dealers do. Maybe I'm wrong there, but you know.
Well, you got problems if your tires aren't worn evenly. That means you're not coming in for routine rotations, balancing, except like that. So I've always been, except for the staggered situation, you should replace all 4 tires at the same time if you're really vigilant about maintaining.
That was good, thank you.
So we got Larry on.
appreciators,
We
he
got
said,
Larry on. Maybe Larry has a tire question. I know he's such a good tire tech. Larry, what's your tire thought?
Well, can you hear me, Ian?
Yeah.
My thing, my philosophy with tires was I just always thought it was frustrating that dealerships would lose business and then all the business over things like not selling tires and not being competitive with oil changes. I've always been kind of greedy with work. I want all your business. I want your friend's business. I want everybody you ever met to come and buy from me. And it's just scary how people don't realize how important fixed operations is. Not only is it a more stable, more predictable profit, but you go to any show now where there's car people, and you'll hear like, whoa, oh my God, what's happening with new cars? Carvana just bought a dealership. You can buy Hyundais through Amazon. What's going to happen? But guess what? You don't have those new used car concerns with fixed ops, and because people are broke and interest rates suck and people are keeping their cars longer, it's even stronger that you should be all over fixed ops all the time. So my thing with tires is make them available. I always had a nice tire display in my place. I always made it clear we wanted to be competitive and whoop the oil change places, because it's a slippery slope once they get there from that.
Fantastic.
Other than that, as far as changing tires or understanding tires, I'm a car salesman. I'm going to remain woefully ignorant and leave that to the guys like Joshua Taylor and everybody else that actually know what the hell they're doing. See that, Josh? I stayed my damn lane.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Marshall, do you do alignments on vehicles? I know you don't sell tires, but do you do alignments? You're still muted, just so you know.
Yeah, we do alignments.
So what's your opinion on alignments? What's it like? How often? What do you recommend?
I mean, you got to think the stuff on big trucks is a little different. Like we get 100,000 miles out of tires pretty easily. Our oil changes are 25,000 miles. So typically we just recommend it whenever we see an unusual tire wear, but I don't have like a mileage recommendation that I typically go off of. I just, whenever we do any kind of front end work, we recommend it, obviously. Any kind of suspension work that's going to change any of the angles of the axles or any of the drivetrain components, we're going to recommend it.
And what kind of big trucks are we talking? We talking really big, or are we talking sort of big? Sorry,
Larry was talking at the same time. I didn't.
Well, how big are these trucks we're talking about?
Wait, let me just jump in on what he said. Marshall, it's nice to put you away.
Yeah.
One of the things when you get your car serviced, where it's an old tire, is they put a little sticker on your wheel or somewhere that lets you know when your next oil change is or your next tire rotation. Russell, how dumb is it that salespeople don't grasp that and don't do little reminders like, hey, happy birthday, Merry Christmas.
We lost you, Larry.
What's disappeared?
That's what happens when you're zooming and driving simultaneously.
You guys are going to have to forgive me. I have
no problem.
A situation out here I got to handle. Nothing alarming, but when the wife calls, something's usually going on when I'm in my office. So peace and love to all of you. Peace and blessings. And we'll catch up to you next Friday, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye-bye.
So Larry, we lost you. What were you saying?
I was saying that it's just interesting that the service guys have it right. They throw a sticker on telling you when your next your next oil change, your next tire rotation should be.
Yeah.
And yet you got millions of goofy salespeople that sell you a car, and it's like you're in witness protection. They don't want to know you. They don't want to reach out to you. I mean, it's just dumb. And the service has it right. Okay, I was just in for service. Thank you. And by the way, here's when your next one is needed.
Fantastic.
But it makes more sense the way you do it, Marshall, than the way salespeople do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm not afraid to sublet something either. I'll sublet the crap out of something. So like if I don't have time to do an alignment, there's a tire shop right down the street that we have an account with, and I'll say, hey, do you want to do an alignment? It's this much. They say, yeah. I drive it right over there to the alignment place, and I get the alignment done, and I bring it back to the shop.
Marshall, I think you and I are brothers from another mother. I did the same thing. When I couldn't make money on somebody, I would sublet him to another dealer, let him take the loss.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I make 100% GP or whatever it is on some of my extracurriculars, and that I'm making money. So
smart. But we're here to make money. And we're not here to just turn wrenches and sell cars. We're here to make money. We're a for-profit business, not a not-for-profit business.
Well, this is one of the things that isn't talked about enough, is that we need to educate our customers that yes, we're in the business of making money, but we're in the business of keeping them safe and saving them money.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
You look at some figures, facts and figures for alignments and tire balances and things like that. And NHTSA says that, improper tire balance can account to up to and over 5% battery efficiency loss. So for those folks out there that are concerned or have that range anxiety, 5% is enough for you to or not to make the charging station, right? A poor alignment, same deal, 5 to 10% potentially battery loss or poor efficiency of battery usage. Again, that's the difference between making it to the charging station or not. That tow truck on that Tesla is really expensive because there's a whole process they have to do to make sure that vehicle can actually get on a flatbed, and then all the extraneous costs that goes along with towing. One of the things that I don't think we do a good enough job as a dealer body, as an industry, is we need to educate our consumers before they're in a position where they need tires, before they're in a position where they have a flat, before they're in a position where they need a tow. We need to be the people that these people call on, not necessarily the hotline that the OEM provides. We don't want them calling the hotline because the customer service is probably going to be junk. That the phone lines are going to be full. They're going to be waiting forever on the side of the road. Get them to call the store. Get them to be, you need to be that person or that business that the customers call on when they need help. Give them opportunities to service with you. Make it easy for them to service you. Tires, alignments, balance are really cost-effective ways to keep those tires lasting longer. Make sure they're fuel efficient for long drives. Make sure the range is appropriate to what it needs to be. And you can sell them at appropriate prices as long as you manage your data. For example, recently at Fixed Ops Marketing, we've done some data analysis in a few different places and a few different offers. Obviously, I've done data analysis on 2023 offers, which if anybody's looking for data on that, I'm happy to go over with them. But more specifically, recent stuff in February, you can actually charge more than you think for alignments. Not too much more, but not too much less. You don't necessarily have to be bargain basements on alignments to get sales. And we proved that with online conversions through Fixed Ops Marketing. So watching your data, watching your online traffic, watching your traffic through the service drive, getting a feel of what it's actually like in your business for tires, alignments, and balances can make you a lot more money if you got your hand on the pulse.
We got a bunch of comments from LinkedIn. Thanks for that, Josh. We got Jamie Alexander. She says, we have alignments built into all our tire packages. We forget the importance of those inspections and showing the guests each visit their tire depth. So that it's time for tires. They trust you and believe you. And I have from Christopher, we recommend once a year-ish for alignments. And also last one from Jamie, agree sell value. They won't question money as long as you're honest and fair. And then also Marshall, he had to jump off for dinner. I guess the wife was calling. And we are a little tight on time today. So I guess my question for you, Josh and Larry, if you have time, is obviously we're talking about tires, we're talking about alignment, we're talking about tire storage, and maybe Josh, you can speak a little bit to that because it's more common in the Canadian market. What's your final thought on what dealers should do to sell more tires, and more importantly, if they're in a winter market, to do tire storage to guarantee that exchange of tires if they're doing that? What do you think?
Well, one, answer the phone. Two, make sure that anybody that answers the phone that talks to a service-based customer can walk a customer through the entire tire purchasing process. I'll try to do this really, really quickly because I did a tire shop back in the fall. And where's my little note here? Too many windows. Okay, so I'm going to do this really as fast as I can.
Yeah, go ahead. You got time. It's all good.
So I called consulting, as it were, for a dealership, wanted to know how to sell more tires. So I shopped around. The first call, however, was to shop that dealership. Blind call,
yeah,
tire shop, however you want, have mystery shop as it's potentially called in some circles. So I called at 250. I spoke with an individual in parts. They could not tell me how much it was to install tires. And because I asked for an installed price, they would not quote me on tires, period. I then got transferred to another individual that also couldn't quote on tires. They tried transferring me to an advisor. I was on hold for 10 minutes trying to get an advisor. After being transferred back to the original person, finding out that they weren't actually from parts, they're actually in the BDC. They then told me to wait a little bit longer to see if they could get in touch with a service advisor or a service manager that could quote me parts installed for tires. At the end of all of that, 21 minutes went by. I didn't get a price on tires. I didn't get a price on installation. I didn't get a price on alignments. And I didn't actually know anything about when I could get the car in or anything else of that nature. But I was told that somebody would call back later with a quote. I didn't believe it. It did eventually happen, but that's not the important bit, because the very next call was to an independent shop next to the dealership.
Yeah.
Not down the street, not across the street, nothing like that. Literally next to the dealership.
Yeah.
In 5 minutes, I had a price on the tires, a price on the installation, a price on alignments, when they would have the tires in so that they can install it, and an appointment time slot set up in 5 minutes.
Yep.
45 minutes later, I got a call back from the dealership, and the quote was $400 more.
Wow.
For the same tires.
Yeah.
So this particular dealership doesn't need a new strategy for tires. They need to teach their people in the store to sell tires. Anybody that calls in needs to be able to sell tires. Period, unequivocally, period. You need to be able quick, needs to be easy, needs to be, let's get you in, because it's the most important way to get people in the store to start making money. And last but not least, on top of all of that, yes, the pricing was off. But I called back the next day because it was a voicemail that was left. Yeah. I didn't actually talk to the person when I called back 40 odd minutes later. Yeah. I left a voicemail, which you should never leave a price on a voicemail.
No.
But I digress. I called back the next day, eventually got the price. That actually wasn't the right tire size, because they quoted me the wrong tire speed rating. It was the right tire size, but it was a 91Z, not a 91H.
Yeah.
So it was completely the wrong tire. Right tire brand, right tire to match up, but it was the wrong tire speed rating.
Right.
So they got it wrong. So even the person in parts that went through all this process, still, parts department still got it wrong. Training. Train your people, get the process down, make it easy for people to buy from you. Then worry about digital tire strategy. Then worry about all those other things because there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. In Fix Shops Marketing, we're going to be releasing some really cool stuff about tires and how to be transparent about tires. But if the stuff in store doesn't work, it doesn't matter how good the ads are.
So what's your thought on tire storage then? Thanks.
Tire storage here in Canada has went from a for-profit piece to a pure retention piece for free for the most part.
Right.
Unless you're in the city, where it's a for-profit because storage is so limited in the city, they now having things taken off-site.
Yeah.
So the local stores here, even in Barrie, in my local area, which is a large city with 250,000 people, a lot of places still do it on-site and they do it for free. In the city, however, it's usually like $150 to $200 per set. And they will haul the tires away, they will clean the tires, they will store the tires, and then it's a process to get them back for the customer. So they can charge for that.
Right.
Do I recommend it? Absolutely. Is it kind of feel like holding tires hostage to a customer?
Get ready.
A little bit, yes. But again, it's back to as long as the process in store or on your appointment solution is clean, simple, clear, and effective for customers, it's not a problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see this all the time. Tires at cost, tire storage for free to a certain degree. I mean, there's tire valet, tire hotel I've seen. You know, obviously tires at cost when you're looking at Costco on our survey that we put up earlier. If you missed that part of the show, I'm just going to throw that up again. I did a survey on this before the show, shockingly. And the question was how important. Now, this poll has ended, but you can check out the results on LinkedIn. 82% is critical. No money in tires, 2%. Costco, 9%. Not sure. Other was 7%. So I think people are getting the fact that it's important to sell tires, but the storage is important. But more importantly, to your point, if you're going to quote tires, if you're going to start selling tires, if you're going to get better at it, you really have to have a process and training to do that because a customer like yourself may look at two different places to buy tires. It could be Costco or it could be Walmart. It could be whatever. You know, but if price being the same, would you have got it from the selling dealer or the dealer that you service it with, or would you have went with a third party in your opinion?
It doesn't matter as long as the process works. As long as the process works, it doesn't matter. But I think that applies to just about everything.
Yeah.
It's back to internal process. If it's not clear, if it's not written, if customers don't understand, it doesn't matter what you do, and it doesn't matter whether you charge for it or not. Yeah. It's going to be bad.
And we have a last comment from Jamie. She's on a tear today on the show. I'm just going to share that comment. Dealerships pay off profit and discourage it in GP percentage. I am the aftermarket, and I do incentive for tires separate from the regular GP expectations. So maybe you can comment on that from Jamie. What do you think?
Hey, Ian, I think Mandy had a comment too.
Oh yeah, Mandy did. No, I got one from Joshua. Process is important. Mandy had a comment too. Really? Oh, I have something to add. Okay, Mandy, go ahead. You're muted.
No, I know. I just didn't want to interrupt. But I just wanted to add to what Joshua was saying about the training and the process and stuff. And when I sold cars, and I'm surprised Larry hasn't jumped in here, tires were a huge component of that. And the struggle was it really slowed down the sales process, having to go back and forth to the parts department and try to figure out what kind of vehicle it was or what kind of tires that it needed, if it needed rims. So I think just creating that process and educating everyone in every department to be able to help make more sales about tires. So it's such a great add-on for additional sales in general for the entire dealership if we can speak well to tires and the add-on. We've often used them to close deals, but then I've seen tons of times where the tires just get added on top of the deal. So they're just like, you know what, you're going to need tires and rims. Let's just throw that in there right now. And then we can close the deal and just add it on top of it. It's another way that we can add revenue to the tire sales, but we just need to have that training like Josh was talking about.
And Josh, Jamie agrees with you.
Misunderstood about tires when purchasing tires on a new vehicle is if you can get the stigma away from putting interest, if it's a loan, if you can get away from the stigma of putting interest on your loan because you're adding $1,600 or $1,000 of cost to your purchase. And make sure you steer away from that properly and professionally, and understand that it's really only $5 extra a month over a period of 5 years. You're rolling that cost into there. It saves everybody money, because the last thing you want to do is, especially here or anywhere where snow occurs, if you buy a vehicle in May, June, and snow's coming in October, getting slapped with $1,000, $1,500 6 months after buying the car is a real difficult thing to handle from a business standpoint. Like, well, why didn't you sell me winter tires when I bought the car? Right? If you could make it so that it was easy for this process, so that I could just come in the fall, we could put them on, it's not going to cost me anything extra, especially if you have inbuilt warranties or service contracts that you can sell as part and parcel, right? It becomes free. For example, we bought our Camry last May and did exactly the same thing. We bought winter tire and rim package, and we bought a service contract, which means our rotations for a period of time are compensated under the service contract. So we don't pay for the tires and we don't pay for the rotation to make the winter to summer and summer to winter swaps happen. So it's a really easy way to turn a customer experience from great to epic when that's all done simple and dusted right off the rip for the first 3 years of ownership.
And Mandy had another.
What happens when you think long-term instead of short-term for your customer?
Exactly. Exactly. Mandy, you had another comment on prepaid maintenance, I think?
Yeah, it all ties back into all of the tools and resources that the sales department can use. And the prepaid maintenance is brilliant. And I think having the service department have them understand the kind of service and the maintenance that is required within those first 3 years would really help the sales department pre-sell that for the F&I department. Like, it really is breaking down the silos and having that training across all departments. You totally are nailing it with the training part, and I don't know how we can improve all of that, but the silo part really comes into play hard there.
Agreed.
So final thoughts. We're almost out of time. Go ahead, Josh. Final thoughts.
Care, train, sell as many tires as you can ethically, perform alignments every 30,000 kilometers or 20,000 miles. Make sure you stock economy for relevant models. Pepper in premium tires for relevant models, meaning if you sell, if you have 5 different trim levels for a specific vehicle, more than likely the top tier vehicle has a slightly different tire size. Make sure you have the premium model for that and have lots of economy models for your base trim levels. Think logically in that regard. Make sure that your salespeople at the front are as trained about tires as your service advisors are, so they can sell tires on new cars, so that it's a much easier conversation in the service drive when it comes time for difficult and inclement weather. Talk about tires every time the vehicle comes in for service. And talk about tire balance way more than you do. I've been on calls with customers and on calls with service managers before, and I kid you not, in the fall, a service manager told me that we don't sell tire balances. That's just asinine to me. It's pure labor. It's nearly pure profit. Just be doing tire balances. Like, there's no reason not to be doing them every 16,000 miles, 20,000 kilometers.
That's it. Any final thoughts from Larry? Thanks for that. Larry or Mandy?
Yeah, you know what I used to tell them? I'd say, listen, doesn't matter how sophisticated your motor is, your suspension, the thing that makes contact with the pavement are your wheels and tires. So I always tried to emphasize that rather than de-emphasize it or ignore it.
Very good. Mandy, final thoughts?
No, I think we've said it all. It's really just coming down to the training. I think there's like so many other areas where we can jump into and different techniques and strategies and tools that are available for the service department to help push that. So it's just a whole other can of worms that we could open up there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much. Have yourself a great Friday evening. And if you're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, remember it's Monday, so you got to practice up over the weekend. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next week's tech show where we're going to have a panel of technicians themselves. That should be a very interesting show. So if you want to see what techs think at scale, we're going to have, I think, 4 or 5 techs on in one show. Have yourself a good night.
Thanks.
Bye for now. If you want a hat, reach out. You just got to pay shipping. The hats are no charge. I got black, blue, and red available. I have some shirts left. Same thing. Just got to pay for shipping. Thanks for supporting the show. Bye for now.